Hello, Realtor family, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Realtor Safety Advisory Committee discussion series. My name is Madeline Hill, and I am the president of the Maine Association of Realtors and a member of the Realtor Safety Advisory Committee. And I'm so excited to act as moderator for today's session. Before we get started, here are just a few housekeeping notes. To cut down on noise and distractions, you will be muted throughout this presentation. We had an amazing response from you with questions for today's event, and we will do our best to cover the most commonly asked questions in this presentation. However, if you still have additional safety questions, please feel free to send your questions to safety@nar.realtor. This program will be recorded and available by September 30th at nar.realtor/safety. We will also make the recording available to you via email. So we have an excellent speaker lineup for you today. We will be hearing from Special Agent in Charge Jay Greenberg from the St. Louis FBI. We will also be hearing from Patricia Wisconis, the founder and CEO of Crime Survivors Incorporated. Today you will hear about what realtor safety means beyond personal physical safety, but thinking about it in a variety of ways. With that in mind, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor. Our sponsor today is brought to you by NAR's Center for Realtor Financial Wellness. Managing finances can be challenging, and they keep a safeguard for your business and stay ahead of the curve with a resource titled A Guide to Managing Volatile Market Shifts. With the pandemic as the most recent experience from which to learn and adapt, the ideas in this guide are provided to help you manage market shifts, to outpace inflation, and review strategies for your personal business and your finances. To access this free and timely 12-page resource, please visit financialwellness.realtor and select the Wellness Essentials tab to download your free copy today. And thank you again for sponsoring this event. Under the leadership of the 2022 committee chair, Janet Judd, the Realtor Safety Advisory Committee has a lot on the docket this year. We have an excellent video covering some of the committee's goals. So please enjoy this message from our 2022 NAR President, Leslie Ruda-Smith, Committee Chair, Janet Judd, NAR 2015 past President, Chris Polycron, and co-staff executive, Brianne Gingrich. Please enjoy this video.
We have been declared a high-risk occupation by the Department of Justice, and our members don't even realize that we're a high-risk occupation.
September is Safety Month, and I want to make sure that every single one of our members gets home safely every single night.
NAR has an array of resources that we provide to our members. Some of those include new MLS safety fields, a safety toolkit for brokers with a list of forms, best practices. We're also working on a trauma response team.
Once you take these safety courses, you'll be able to go back to your offices, share it with your brokers, share it with your coworkers.
I truly believe that we should always think about safety every day, every week, have a meeting every month.
I hope that you take the time to go to nar.realtor/safety and check out all the wonderful resources.
A quick disclaimer before we begin today. The stories that you are about to hear during this webinar can be upsetting in nature and may trigger a negative, unwanted response in certain audience members. If you have experienced trauma or been a victim of an attack while on the job, we strongly encourage you to seek assistance and support from local resources. There's currently a misconception in our industry that crimes against real estate agents are random, opportunistic street crimes, when in fact most are predatory in nature. In the video that we're about to see, we'll hear from victims of predatory crimes, learn how to identify predatory behaviors, and what to do to keep yourself safe in the field.
Member safety is a matter of your life or your death.
I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be in a situation to where I would have a 9mm held to my head.
It was a day like any other when James Olson, an agent with more than 35 years' experience, set out to meet a blind lead at a vacant property, something he had done countless times before.
I was actually with my wife on the way to an appointment. I had never met this person, and she was sitting on the front porch waiting for me, and I just told my wife to wait in the car. We walked through the living room, the dining room, and the kitchen. Now, I've been in this property a number of times, and it just seemed odd to me that all the doors were closed. So I went to grab the bedroom door, and out came a masked gunman holding a 9mm to my head. He was all dressed in black like a ninja. He had a hoodie on, sunglasses, face mask, black gloves, black everything. Within a couple seconds, another guy dressed the same held a 9mm up against the side of my head. I had my hands up in the air, and he said, "Get down to the floor." So I took his gun, and he hit me in the back of the head. I went falling to my knees. Blood was flowing in my eyes. They're asking me where the money is, and I told them I didn't have any, so they rifled my pockets and pulled my pants down and socks and shoes off, and they wound up making away with my wedding ring, my wallet, and my iPhone. They came back to me and said, "Give us 10 minutes or we're coming back here and killing you." These guys are out there, and if they attack me, more than likely they're going to be going after somebody else. This was a predatory assault. They didn't just randomly pick me, they stalked me.
Jim Olson was surveilled and targeted based on his job as collecting rents as a property manager. They knew what day to lure him into the property that was vacant so he could be robbed at gunpoint. Studies have shown that agent male victims were attacked 30% of the time. And we know with Jim Olson, and he's a big burly man, infantry soldier, never was in fear that something could happen, and he was a victim of a violent robbery. And now, listen to his story, he changes the way he does business. He arrives at a home much earlier than the appointment time and does a circumference of the house to see if there's anything out of place or if there's any broken windows or forced entry.
Kitty Wallace, a managing broker with almost 20 years' experience, has faced off with numerous predators.
One of my most recent experiences was from a gentleman who wanted to see a home. I have a practice that I have them meet me at the office for the first time. This particular gentleman didn't want to meet me at the office, so that did put a red flag up for me.
Working in a rural area with limited cell phone reception, Kitty remained steadfast in her safety protocols, but the caller had a plan of his own.
He was very insistent, and it was, "Can you meet me there in an hour?" And I said, "No, unfortunately, I can schedule an appointment with you. We can sit down and see what your needs are." No, I want to see this house." And he said, "Okay, then meet me in 2 hours." He just kind of kept moving the time frame for me. And when that escalated and he wouldn't meet me, he ended up calling my office. He was swearing at me saying that, that's my job. I need to meet him here. What is my seller going to do when he finds out I won't show him this property, etc. And I just didn't let myself get bullied. I really stood my ground and didn't meet with him at all. I've always kind of just accepted it's part of the job, and that's really not okay. So I reported it to my local association, and they sent an email blast to all the agents. 2 other agents reached out to me, and they had also been approached by this gentleman. Maybe I prevented something bad happening not only to myself, but maybe somebody else as well. I do believe that the intent of some clients is not to buy a house. The intent is to see what they could do if they got me a loan.
Jim and Kitty's harrowing stories display the 2 types of predatory motives: profit and power and control.
There is a misconception that crimes against agents are random opportunistic street crime, and in fact, they're of predatory nature. And by understanding predator behavior and learning that you can remove weakness, subservience, and vulnerability out of your daily practice, you'll be able to keep yourself safe.
I think realtor safety is one of the most important things that any realtor can learn about.
The goal of the Realtor Safety Program is to reduce the number of incidents in our industry so this way you can come home to your family every night. You deserve it and they deserve it.
I think having these protocols in place is definitely the key to saving my life. 99.9% of the time, our job is amazing. It's that 0.01% that's not worth my life.
I'm so proud of that video.
It's
I
a
really am.
powerful video. Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce Janet Judd. Janet is the 2022 chair of the Realtor Safety Advisory Committee. She's been guiding our committee this year through our work focusing on adding safety information to the MLSs around the country, toolkits for associations, and fostering the growth of the trauma response team. Thank you, Janet, for all your work and for being with us today.
I'm absolutely honored to be the chair of the Safety Advisory Committee for NAR. And I am very proud of the fact that I've had the opportunity to recently graduate from the FBI Citizens Academy here in St. Louis. And having attended that, had the pleasure and honor of meeting the special agent in charge, the field agent in charge. And I've got his bio in front of me. I'm going to read it to you, and then I have the honor of introducing him. Jay Greenberg is named special agent in charge of St. Louis field office. This was an announcement that went out from the FBI's press office in May. And the reason it's such a big deal is there's only like 64 of them in the entire country. So Director Christopher Ray has named Jay Greenberg as a special agent in charge of the St. Louis field office. He mostly recently served as a deputy assistant chief in the Criminal Investigative Division at the FBI headquarters in Washington, and that's like the mothership. Mr. Greenberg joined the FBI as a special agent in 2005 and was assigned to the Washington field office, where he investigated civil rights, public corruption, and government fraud. In 2012, he was promoted to supervisory special agent and transferred to the CID's public corruption unit in the headquarters. In 2013, he was assigned to lead white-collar crime squad in the Fort Worth resident agency of the Dallas field office. He was promoted in 2017 to assistant special agent in charge of the Chicago field office, new residence agency branch. And then later in 2017, after a reorganization in the Chicago office, he was named as the ASAC of the office's criminal enterprise branch. Mr. Greenberg was promoted to section chief of the violent crime section in CID at headquarters in 2019. He played a key leadership role in the FBI's Operation Legend, a coordinated initiative across law enforcement to address a surge in violent crime. He also helped reallocate resources to the Oklahoma City field office after a Supreme Court decision increased the FBI's investigative responsibility in Indian country in Oklahoma. In 2020, he was promoted to the Deputy Assistant Director of CID, where he led sections that dealt with financial crimes, public corruption, civil rights, and FBI's covert operations. So he has his hands in everything. He earned a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from Texas A&M. And prior to joining the FBI, he worked in management and technical consulting. So I have the great pleasure of introducing Jay Greenberg. He's special agent in charge of the FBI office in St. Louis. We call him Chief. And Jay, welcome and thank you for doing this for all of us. I really appreciate it.
You're good. Thank you, Janet. Can you hear me okay? See me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for the invitation and the very kind introduction. I know it's being recorded. I hope my mom can see that. That's nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks again for having me here on behalf of the FBI. It's an honor. I have around 20 minutes or so on the agenda, 25 minutes to go over a handful of topics that we have prepared, but obviously this is everybody's time online. So I have the chat up as well. I see one question's already come in. If there are specific items that you want me to emphasize as I'm going through a discussion, we're planning to talk a little bit about today violent crime, some cyber optics as end users, and just things you should know as American citizens going on in cyber. There's some specific questions about recognizing signs of human trafficking, but a little bit of background about the FBI. And Janet did a fantastic job going through my background with the FBI and prior to the FBI. So I'm going to just quickly talk about the uniqueness of the FBI for just a little bit of time. We cover every single intelligence community threat that globally all countries worry about. And we also have a domestic law enforcement mission here in the United States. So while the FBI is just under 40,000 people strong going across 70 countries, the majority of our efforts are focused on crime and intelligence activities right here in the United States, but of course, spanning the globe with the way that the world is shrinking through interconnected networks and shrinking borders. So we could talk today about counterterrorism, about active shooters, about school shootings. We probably will talk just a little bit about counterintelligence, because I think many of you might have information that we should learn about what our foreign adversaries are trying to do. We will talk a little bit about cyber, but again, from an end user perspective, and then I will focus the majority of time on violent crime, keeping yourself safe, to sort of emphasize what you saw in the introductory video. And then we'll talk about some indicators from crimes against children or human trafficking and any other topics that are of interest to the audience here. So let me go ahead and get started out of respect for everybody's time and the limited amount of time that we have here. So what I'd like to talk about out of those topics first is really the counterintelligence threat, because each one of you, we have about 500 people online for this meeting. Each one of you could be a key partner for us in sort of letting us know something that you're seeing develop in terms of foreign adversaries who are trying to steal US technology or US information through your client base or through your business. You could personally be victimized, and so could your clients, by foreign nations. So at a very high level, China is our primary foreign adversary when we talk about counterintelligence. Make no mistake, the Communist Party of China has one primary goal as it relates to America, and that is to destroy and dissolve America as we know it today, and to get their access into all of our intellectual property, and to change our way of life to be ruled by the Communist Party of China. So when you have business clients who have multinational organizations, when you have clients who have business operations over in China, or when you're using devices that are manufactured in whole or in part in China in any way, you should be cognizant that China may have helped themselves to any information that you store on those devices. One sort of quick end user public service announcement as it relates to China. If you travel to China at any time, their human rights and the freedoms that you have when you're in China are very, very different. They're incredibly degraded compared to the freedoms and the protections that you have in America. So if you travel to China, there's a huge amount of world history that has happened in and through China. So I'm not discouraging travel to China, but if you do so, if you take devices with you and the Chinese Communist Party decides that you are somebody of interest because of other connections that you have, they will absolutely exploit your device, and they will largely, they will very likely leave software on your device after it is resident in China so that they can search your device and exfiltrate information out of that any given time. So this leads us into a little bit of end user cyber awareness. So just a couple of free gifts with purchase today for sitting and listening to this discussion. One is that cyber actors everywhere, there are certainly very concerted efforts from Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China to exploit cyber networks that are available that come right into your house and right into your business. Those actors are looking to gain persistent, evolving access to your systems. So what that means, persistent access means that they have access to a device day after day after day after day, and they build themselves a backdoor into a system or into a device so that they can access it continuously or anytime they want. Evolving access means that regardless what protections you put around your device or your system, they can then use their backdoor to overcome any kind of security that you lay over the top one of your devices. So a laptop, a tablet, a cell phone, all of those are devices that these cyber actors may want to gain access to for a variety of reasons. We generally see that there are three main goals of our adversaries in cyber. And to be clear, the audience here that I'm talking about for these actors, sometimes it is foreign state actors. So China has a whole huge hacking arm of its government. So does Russia, so does Iran, so does North Korea. Additionally, there are cyber criminals across the world who are engaging in cyber activity every single day, trying to get access to your devices and your information. They work together when it is convenient, and they work separately when they need to as well, because they have different motives. But generally, they're trying to achieve one of three goals. The first is they're trying to get access to a system that has inherent value so that they can steal information out of that system. The second that they try to do is get inside a system and wait for that system to be connected to or gobbled up by another system that is of greater value to them. So for instance, let's say that you work in a small shop in Artesia, New Mexico, right? And let's say that you are part of a small realtor shop that then gets gobbled up by a huge national company that does property management and real estate and has a number of side businesses as well. And your system gets absorbed into that parent system. Well, a cyber actor really with access to your networked 4 computers in your office in New Mexico might not be that attractive. You might not have that much information that they're interested in. But if your system, eventually by residing on it for years, if they gain access to your system, which eventually gets folded into a larger system, they might be able to build a backdoor in your system that survives long enough for them to then get on this much larger server network or a much larger system and build themselves a backdoor there. Once there, they might find intellectual property they want to outright steal. They might lock that system down and offer it as a ransomware where you no longer have access to your data or system, but in return, allegedly for a payment that you would make, they would then grant you access to your system again. We would never recommend that. We recommend that ransom payments never be made. First, it incents the criminal activity or the nation state activity. And secondly, if you don't know who the actor is, you have no guarantee that paying it will actually result in having a system unlocked, or that they won't simply build themselves a backdoor and come in and lock the system down. Once you've shown that it's profitable for them to lock your system, they are actually incented to lock your system over and over. And we sometimes see that happening in these developing trends. And then the third is they might exfiltrate what we call personally identifiable information, or PII. So think about what you know about all of your customers, their names, their addresses, their social security numbers, their dates of birth, in some cases, their banking information. You might get access to all of that through the standard real estate or real estate management processes that you run. And that information can be sold. It is valuable in and of itself. It can also be used to take out additional credit lines and to victimize your customers. So think about if somebody got access to your hard drive on your computer or your network, and then they stole your customers' information. Then it'd be a pretty bad day if you had to go talk to all your customers and say, hey, I think somebody just got access to all of your information through me. I'm really sorry. There's professional liability that comes with that. So here's the good news before I leave cyber. It's not a scare tactic. The good news is there is a very capable web of federal resources that are working every day to protect cyber networks globally. We are linked all across the world, and the United States has incredibly dedicated, capable professionals who are working to protect our cyber networks, to detect intrusions. And then the FBI's role really is to be the domestic lead. So if we know that you have a system that is either being tampered with or has been accessed or used in any kind of way that would make you a victim under federal law, it's our requirement to come out and talk to you and say, we know that there are actors who have gained access to your system, and we want to work with you to help resolve that situation. The best action you can do every single day. You don't have to be a cyber expert to do this. So here's the best news of the day. All you have to do, and just think about this in your own life, how often you do this, is shut down every single computer that you have every single day and restart it. If you do that, that will wipe out the majority of the pieces of software that actors are putting on your computer, and you will essentially close off their access simply by shutting it down. So does everybody here turn off a phone every single day and turn it back on? We tend not to do that, right? And do you do that for every single iPad and every single laptop and every single Surface Pro in your office and in your home? And if you do, that's great. What about your Wi-Fi router? And what about your actual modem that brings your signal into your house? Because those actors can get access to your modem or your router or your Wi-Fi router, and then they can live there and get to any one of your devices through your network connections. So I would simply think about all of these computers in a networked fashion as kind of like windows in a house. Every single night before you go to bed, you might think about going around and closing and locking every single window so it's not easy for people to walk in. You should think about your computers in the very same way. Every single day you should shut them down. And that goes for your Wi-Fi router and your cable modem or whatever you use to get your broadband into your house, as well as every single device that connects to that network. Doing that alone will close off the majority of your cyber vulnerabilities. So there is a great deal of information online that is available. If you go to CISA's website, the Cybersecurity and Information Security Agency, if you go to FBI.gov, we work with each other very, very closely, as well as with Department of Treasury and a host of other three-letter federal agencies to sort of make sure that we're conducting joint sequenced operations in the right way to disrupt cyber actors and protect Americans every day. And so if you're interested in more resources, you can call your local FBI office. You can call us generally at 1-800-CALL-FBI, or you can just go to FBI.gov for more information about that or anything else I talk about today. Okay, so that's a little bit on counter intel, a little bit on cyber. Those were just free additions for you. So let me talk a little bit about violent crime. The video was great. The video that was just, was presented, talked a lot about your personal safety and about actions that you can take. Everything that was there is exactly where you would want to be. You should not be the only person who knows your location and your client schedule, whom you're meeting with, contact information for your clients, and your schedule for location in any given day. I would recommend, just as a general best practice for physical safety, know whom you're dealing with, have a little bit of information about them, and make sure there are multiple people who know your schedule and know that it would be out of the ordinary if they haven't heard from you by a certain time period. If you are going somewhere where you're going to meet one-on-one with somebody, which happens all the time, particularly if you are in a cash collection type of business from a real estate function, people should know when they should expect to hear from you afterwards that everything is good, that there's an all clear, or that, that next appointment, if they don't find you, somebody should be able to get in touch with you via phone or know where to send help if you may need it and you can't ask for help yourself. So just some general, physical safety reminders there. The video went over a number of them, but just redundancy in all of your contact information and all of your scheduling information. One thing that we tend to do is make sure that we have multiple people with access to our calendars so that you can just schedule yourself on your calendar and have a partner who can check your calendar and see where you're at. And that way they know, hey, the last time, we can chase this person back was earlier today with a client at 10 a.m., but the 11 a.m. never happened. Okay, well, that might give us an address to start with. In any case, at any point, if you believe that your physical safety is in danger, you should always call 911. Local police are the first respondents who will come and bring you, safety and security and get you necessary help, and can respond very, very quickly. Groups like the FBI, we work in close concert with our local and state partners. We work with federal prosecutors to actually charge crimes, and with local and state prosecutors to charge state crimes when that is a more appropriate charge. But for physical security issues or concerns, when you're dealing with the actual security of your physical self, your person, you should always rely on 911. If you're in an area, one of the videos went over, sort of rural areas that don't always have good cell coverage. If you're going out, one of the bullets that was listed on the video was sort of trust your instincts. There are a couple of great books on this that if you wanted to know more about why you should trust your instincts, there are a couple of very interesting reads out there. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Blink, and there was another book called The Gift of Fear. So, we could certainly talk more about the why of it, but essentially your body, we're all animals, and we have all kinds of inputs. There are a billion inputs that your body is using to make decisions every single day, every single second. And so the reason we say trust your gut or gut instinct or trust your instincts is because frequently your brain is not the one controlling your body's reaction. You have a separate system inside your body. And when things start happening, that system is going to alert you first that something is not right or something feels unsafe around you. Don't let your brain talk your gut instinct out of making yourself safe. So anytime you feel unsafe, there is probably one of these 1 billion inputs that your body is dealing with that's cluing you in that something is not right in your general surrounding. And you should just get yourself to safety until your internal system tells you, hey, now I feel safe. Why don't I try and figure out what was going on? So that would be, one just sort of item to highlight from the video is always trust your gut and try to put yourself in a situation where you have the best sort of physical security around you. So one of the topics I was asked to talk about that realtors or real estate companies or rental agreement companies or folks who have one of these structures in their life might come across would be, how do we spot human trafficking? So let me start with a quick definition of what human trafficking is. Human trafficking has nothing to do with the movement of people. Human trafficking is modern day slavery. It is people who are being forced into work either with low or no pay and frequently against their will. We see this portrayed all the time on TV shows and in the movies for sex trafficking. Those are people forced into prostitution type activities, but this happens across the world and here in the United States in labor trafficking as well. So migrant farmers, people who work on migrant farms or travel around during different picking seasons are frequently pressed into what we call human trafficking situations, as are people who collect money on corners. There are sometimes through the guise of charitable collections and sometimes through the guise of other organizations that are fundraising. People will go door to door, people will sell magazine subscriptions, that type of thing, or collect money. So any of those people could be victimized by human trafficking schemes that are very common, as could sexual laborers, sex trafficking. So what you might see if you were to walk into a house, if you see rooms that are chopped up where there are a whole lot more beds or a whole lot more living spaces than would make sense for that kind of house or that kind of property, if it's not a group home that is appropriately registered, that would be the clearest sign of human trafficking. When you're out and about in the community, if you were to see a group of, we tend to see as well that vulnerable communities, Black and brown people and immigrants tend to be victimized at a higher rate in human trafficking. And frequently they don't have driver's licenses, they don't speak the language, they have a great fear of law enforcement. Traffickers will drive a fear of law enforcement into particularly immigrants and those who don't speak English well, and tell them that law enforcement in this country is violent and corrupt and you can't trust them. And if a police officer ever comes up to talk to you, you should not talk to them, not tell them anything. Instead, just ignore them, walk away, and then get back with the trafficker. So these traffickers will frequently collect identification documents like driver's licenses, IDs, passports, and they will hold them so that those people have no way to say who they are and to get away from them. They'll lock down food in houses. So, key indicators you may see if you're in a house, lots of additional chopped up rooms, more beds than you would expect to see in that kind of house where lots of people might be sleeping there, a lack of possessions with a lot of beds. padlocks on fridges, additional locks on doors beyond just simple security measures, but those kinds of things where, let's say that you saw a double deadbolt, right, where it required a key to open a lock from the inside and the outside, and those were on all doors. That's not a dispositive sign. Certainly that is the most secure kind of lock that is out there that you could put on any house. But generally speaking, we don't need to lock people in to rooms, and you need a key to unlock from the inside of a room. It's fire safety. It's all kinds of hazard for getting out for children or for other occupants who don't have keys in case they really need to escape that property. So those would be some signs inside houses that you could look for. And if you're out and you see a van that is dropping people at different job sites, or you happen to see that kind of activity where people are being driven around from place to place in vans or in other large transport vehicles where they're letting off a lot of people at job sites, particularly vulnerable communities like immigrants or Black or brown folks, that might be an indicator. It may be that nothing is wrong. That could be a very legal, legitimate carpool. Again, if you just call that tip into law enforcement and say, hey, I saw this and I can't think why that might be happening, it would be a really good set of eyes and ears for us in the community. And you could call your local police on their non-emergency line, or you could call the FBI's 1-800-CALL-FBI line, and we'll certainly take the complaint and get that out either to the right state and local resource or to one of our field offices in a state or city. So I'm going to pause there. I do want to say a couple of words quickly about elder fraud, and just remind everybody here that both for children and for the elderly among us, they don't always have the context, the fully functioning brains that they need to make good decisions for themselves. So anytime you're interacting with the really young, which is under 20, or the really old, if they're not making coherent sense, or you think that they're trying to explain a situation to you that you simply can't make sense of, that would be a good time to alert law enforcement that we might need to go out. It could just be a welfare check. It could be somebody whose physical health is degrading and a family doesn't recognize that or isn't local and doesn't see that. And so I would encourage you, if you come across the really young or the really old and they're explaining a situation to you that doesn't make sense, trust your gut. Pick up the phone, call a non-emergency number for law enforcement, try to get their identifiers and their location and some resources out there, because it could be somebody in trauma, it could be somebody who's being victimized, or it could just be somebody who needs some additional community resources. And you don't have to be responsible for knowing what all those community resources are that are available. Our state and local partners and federal law enforcement as well know what those resources are and would be happy to make sure and make connections if there's something that's needed there. So at this point, out of respect for everybody's time, I want to pause, and I'd like to just ask Janet or Madeline, sort of how we're doing on time, and if you would like me to answer some specific questions that have come up in the chat, or if that's all the time we have, and if I should just end with some resource pointers and turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation, Jay. We do have some questions. Courtney, what would you suggest? Do you want to take the questions now or save them till the end? Being sensitive of Jay's time as well.
We could take a couple of questions now if Jay would like.
Sure. So let me get this going again. This window just closed on me, so hang on.
You know what, Jay, I loved the fact that you talked about the trafficking. I actually had a situation a couple of years ago. It was a rental property, and the neighbors called the owner and told them that there were like 16 people living in the house. And it turned out that they called about it and they were being forced to work in a restaurant. And they were making them work shifts, and a van was picking them up, the van was dropping them off. And there it was in an area that you may never have suspected or expected. And it did happen.
Yeah, Janet. So restaurants, that's another industry. Anything that has sort of low trained, what we think of as minimum wage jobs, I would never demean those jobs. They're very important to us. But anybody that has, jobs where it requires less training or caters to a specific segment of the population, those would be high risk areas where people might be trafficked into those jobs. So it's a great example you gave, Janet, about restaurant workers. Certainly people in the cleaning industry, anything that we would consider sort of those jobs that require less training or could be done by a variety of people would be, risk areas for trafficking. So a couple of questions came up. I will take just a couple of minutes. Let me scroll up here in the chat room.
Jay, I really wanted to hear you talk just for momentarily about sextortion.
Sure.
That, if you wouldn't mind hitting on that.
Okay, yeah, I'd be happy to, Jamie. So sextortion is a scheme that we've seen kind of change lately. So sextortion by definition is when somebody willingly shares a nude photo or a partially clothed photo of themselves to somebody else on the other end of a device. And this typically victimizes children more so than other people, but it can be anybody. A victim can be of any age, but we see it primarily targeting children. So children with devices who are sharing a nude photo of themselves, thinking that there might be a love connection on the other end of that. And it turns out to be a child predator or somebody who has a profit motive. That's really the change that we've seen lately in sextortion. So if you just go to FBI.gov and enter sextortion, there is a great wealth of information. But at a high level, what we are seeing develop, so in the world where we have child predators who are trying to generate, their producers is what we call them under the law. They are generating videos of minor victims, having sex or in a sexual context that does violate federal law and every state, a law in every state in our nation. What we've traditionally seen is the currency for child predators like this is new video of new victims engaging in different acts than has been seen before. That's always been the currency. So what happens in sextortion is we get a child with access to a device. They usually have been victimized in their life sexually prior to becoming a victim of sextortion, but that is starting to change. And they share a photo of themselves in a partially clothed or entirely nude or engaging in some kind of sex act. And then the person on the other end starts demanding additional videos every day or says, I will come kill your parents. I'm going to alert this. I'm going to send these videos to all your friends. I'm connected to you and your friend group on Facebook or on Instagram or on any of these other online applications. I'm going to let the school know that you're engaged in this. I'm going to embarrass you in the community. And so they start extorting videos, new videos, sometimes every day, twice a day from these kids, when they wake up in the morning and before bedtime at night, whenever they have access to their device, and they're demanding different kinds of, horrifying videos or pictures from these kids. And these kids will sometimes suffer in silence for years on this. What we would ask you to look for, so two things, as parents and as guardians and as people who are in charge of children out there, I would ask you, and our organization would ask you, if you have children who have access to devices that are connected to the internet, and every child has a device connected to the internet these days, that for them to use that device unsupervised requires that child to have a responsible adult who can have a mature conversation with them about predators being out there and wanting to get nude photos of those children. The generation today that grows up with these devices is very different from my generation and the generation that some of you are representing here on the line, right? I would never think of sending a nude photo of myself, right? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's never something I would engage in. But for our kids, the vast majority of kids now, that is normalized behavior for people under 18. The vast majority in our surveys of children who are surveyed, over 80% of them are saying that they have or they will send nude photos of themselves to people that they believe have a love connection to them. So real quickly, I'm going to change to the second part of what we're seeing develop in sextortion. Largely overseas actors right now, but it could be anybody, is pretending to be one person online, getting a child, particularly our young men, to send a nude photo of themselves. And as soon as they get that first nude photo, the sextortion actors are then coming back and telling the kids, hey, I'm not who you thought I was. I will come kill your parents. I will, publish this to your school and whatever, if you don't send me money. And they're asking these kids to send them $5, $10, $20, $50, $500, whatever they can get out of the kids. The kids are supposed to go and take a credit card or take cash to a drugstore or to a grocery store and buy a gift card and then send the gift card code. We have kids who are doing this nationwide. It's driving two different things. The first is we have a whole lot of children who are experiencing trauma at the hands of these very, very callous subjects. That's number one that is happening. And number two, we're seeing a dramatic spike in young person suicide. So I would ask everybody out there, be on the watch. If you have a child who is being victimized by somebody through a sextortion scheme, there are going to be immediate detectable dramatic changes in that child. They're going to become withdrawn. They're going to be more emotional. Now, how do you tell that a 13-year-old is more emotional because they're a sextortion victim versus there's just a lot of changes happening in their body? You can't tell from the outside looking. That requires a mature, trusting relationship between a parent and a child, or a guardian and a child, or a trusted adult and a child. You could be this trusted adult for a niece or a nephew or a neighbor. You don't have to have a formal role in that child's upbringing for you to be the one that they may make outcry to. So if you see dramatic behavior change in a child where they are much, much more emotional, or they are withdrawing, they're changing activities, they're changing the way that they dress, they're changing the way they demonstrate, they show parts of their body in their everyday lives. That would be a conversation to have with somebody who is in a responsible relationship over that child, or if you have the trusting relationship with that child in a direct way. And I'll just leave you with this one thought, Janet, and others about this topic. I want everybody here to think about your most vulnerable sexual experience that you've ever had in life. And now I want you to start typing and send that to me in the text with these other 500 people who are online. I don't see that anybody is typing anything, right? Nobody wants to share that experience. It's embarrassing. It's horrifying to think about. Think about now you're 12 and you've just done something and you're afraid that your parents are going to kill you, or your guardian's going to kill you, or you're going to lose access to your friends or your life, or that you may see no way out of this situation and you may be hopeless. We all have to be the kind of adults in our personal lives who are building trusting, open, empowering relationships with our kids, that if we're giving them a device, they understand, if this device is ever used against you, I will always love you. You will always have somebody who supports you and trusts you and wants only the best for you. And if something ever happens, come talk to me or come talk to another adult that you trust so that we can get you help. If we're going to put a device in a child's hand, we have to be able to have that kind of conversation with them ahead of time. So if you haven't done that, it's not too late. You could do that today. You could do that this weekend. There are a wealth of resources on the National Centers for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, as well as on FBI.gov about how to have those conversations with your children. And frankly, as a parent of children, I have reviewed those websites before having some of those very same conversations with my own kids. So this is a transparent, vulnerable moment for me too, that we all need help in having those.
And you know why? The reason I brought it up, even though it doesn't have to do with real estate, it has to do with our lives. It has to do with our families, and it has to do with just protecting the people that we love. And this was about safety coast to coast. And I didn't say it was just about real estate. It's about our lives and the people we love. So that's why I chose to have that, because that was probably a big surprise to me when I attended the academy. So thank you, Chief. I appreciate your time. If I could give you a hug and a round of applause, I certainly would. So let's just give them a round of applause silently. And thank you for this honor. And we're going to have to go on to our next guest. So Madeline, I'll let you take it over from here.
Okay, thank you, Janet. And thank you again, Jay. It's very interesting that safety means something different to everybody, and we could cover topics all afternoon. And we're hopeful that Jay will stick around because we do have a few more questions at the end, but that was an excellent presentation and we're very grateful for you. Thank you. It's my pleasure now to introduce our next speaker. Patricia Wiskonis is the founder and CEO of Crime Survivors Incorporated, and has gained national renown for her tireless advocacy on behalf of the victims of violent crimes. Crime Survivors is dedicated to the proposition that the community support, respectful advocacy, and hopeful healing, one can survive a violent crime and thrive in their personal lives. Ms. Wiskonis stresses the important distinction between being a victim and a survivor, and is in the mindset that forms the basis for her organization's universally praised work. Patricia, thank you so much for being with us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I so appreciate the opportunity to be here to share with all of you. It's very interesting to be able to have opportunities now on Zoom, of course, right? But to be able to talk about safety and awareness is such a key topic and conversation, and it is extremely important, especially in this climate, no matter where you reside. I'm just going to share, I know I have about 10 minutes to speak, so I'm going to speak probably really fast and quickly, but I will also include my information. So if anybody would like to do outreach to myself or our organization after today, please feel free to call, to email, to text me anytime. We're happy to also do future trainings and presentations moving forward, no matter where you reside, whether it's on Zoom or in person as well. Keep in mind, we are in a very difficult climate right now. When we're talking about defunding the police, when we're talking about crime rates going through the roof, murder, rape, sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, all of these types of things. And I'm going to share just a little bit about myself. I'm a survivor myself of attempted murder. I survived attempted murder on April 4th of 2002 when my personal trainer came into my house, drugged me, wrapped my face and head in saran wrap, beat me black and blue, screaming that he was going to kill me and my 12-year-old child at the time. As a single mother and as a business owner, never would have I ever thought that that would happen to me, that someone would want to take my life. Unfortunately, that was the reality. He was charged with deliberate premeditated attempted murder, burglary in the first degree, assault with a deadly weapon, and criminal threats. And through our legal system, he served approximately 120 days. 120 days, 5 years anger management, 5 years probation. Now that was back in 2002 when that happened to me. Life-changing experience. Never was I to ever think that it would happen, and never would I think that our legal system or justice system would play out the way that it did. Unfortunately, it's actually worse. Our legal system, our justice system is actually worse. I'm not here to scare you or upset anyone. I'm just here to say, with all of these new laws that have been put into place, no matter if you're in Chicago or Mississippi or Tennessee or California or wherever you reside, for some reason, it has not become victim survivor friendly, and it's become more offender criminal friendly. Speaking about defunding the police and taking away things when we need more of that now than we've ever needed. With the suicide rates that are going through the roof, right? With crimes happening to children and children causing criminal behaviors as well. So what I really want for all of you to know out of my speaking today that I'm going to share with you is my personal survival. For me, with faith, there is hope. I feel like I made a promise to God on April 4th of 2002 that I would live for community above self. I've kept that promise by starting an organization called Crime Survivors. We provide support and guidance to all victims of violent crime, whether it's families of murder, survivors of attempted murder, rape, domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, elder abuse, and human trafficking. We work extremely closely with law enforcement, district attorneys, probation, FBI, victim assistance programs, victim advocates throughout Southern California, throughout the state, and within other states as well. What I would like you to know that there is hope for healing, because although I was victimized, I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor, I'm a thriver, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a community leader. I'm so much more than what happened to me. Although I'll never forget what happened to me, I've been able to take this life calling to be able to bring awareness, prevention, advocacy, and healing throughout our communities. So when you're out there, I would like for all of you to make sure that you put together a safety plan. A safety plan is so important that not only you have a safety plan for your personal self, with your children, with your grandchildren, with your family, with your significant other, but also that you have a safety plan put into place at your office, that your place of employment has a safety plan in place, whether it's where are the exits out, how to call 911 if the phone system is down, also contacting your local law enforcement agency, getting to know your chief of police or your sheriff, your FBI agents in the area, getting to know who is out there in your surroundings in case there is a crisis. If there's a mass shooting, if somebody's been a victim of a crime, you know who to call. And as we know, when you develop relationships, it's easier to contact someone if you're in crisis mode or if you're in need of help or support. So get that safety plan into place. Come up with a key word. It's not a regular normal word, but a key word that if you're in crisis mode and you were to text that key word to another agent or to a family member, they would know it's an emergency and they should call the authorities or the police as well, right? Again, knowing 911, knowing those resources to be able to. Also, you probably have your family, your friends, your local pizza department saved into your cell phone. Please also save the phone number for your local police department in your phone so that all you'd have to do is push that number and one time and then talk, and it'll go to your local police department as well. In case it's not a 911 situation or circumstance, or for whatever reason, you're in an area where 911 goes directly to CHP or goes to the troopers or goes someplace else, you'll also have the local police department's phone number and contact information. I couldn't agree more with you, Jay. If on The Gift of Fear, I think it's an absolutely amazing book. I highly suggest all of you get it, read it, pass it on to your children, your grandchildren to read, appropriate ages, of course, to read it. Also, The Body Keeps Score. I also highly suggest that. And I do follow up as well as what Jay said on red flags. There's a reason why we have red flags gut feelings. Never doubt or question it over what your feelings are over somebody else. I don't care if you have to crawl in the back of your car, you have to go in the other side of the car, you have to crawl through a window, you have to crawl out of a window. It does not matter. It's how you feel. Whatever is safe for you is what is most important. You don't have to define that or defend that to anybody. As long as you feel safe and protected, you make those choices. That's for you. When you're going out to show a home or you're working with someone that you don't know your surroundings, right? Pay attention, jot them down, know what's outside. Do you see an unusual car or vehicle? Do you know if something was to happen? What doors, what are your accesses to get in and out, how to get in and out? There are things in each room that maybe you can be able to use as a weapon if need be. Maybe there's a vase that's sitting on the table. You could use that as a weapon. Also, personally, I highly suggest that you know in each room of your house, as well as in your office, what are things that could be used if you were being attacked as a weapon to protect yourself. And all you ladies, nothing against you men, but all you ladies, you usually like to say, well, we have the mother instinct. We don't want to hurt anybody. But if somebody's going to hurt you, you need to fight back, right? You need to either, if somebody's trying to get your purse, don't try to defend your purse over your makeup or your credit cards or anything else. Throw it as far away as you possibly can, and then take off running. If somebody is attacking you, you need to fight back to save your life. Don't feel guilty or bad, even though you may. Try to work through those feelings and those emotions as well. Maybe before you go out to a meeting, whether it's at a restaurant or whether it's at a house showing or an apartment, whatever that may be, leave yourself a message, whether it's on the phone, whether it's in an email, so that there is something to say where you're at. If something was to happen, somebody else would know that address, that location, that person's name that you're supposed to be meeting. So there's a trail that you can go ahead and keep track of that. Also, in your local area, get to know your victim assistance programs. Maybe you haven't been a victim yourself. You may know somebody, but look up, it's usually through your local district attorney's office. Set up a meeting, get to know your district attorney. Also get to know the victim assistance advocates so that if you yourself has been a victim, you qualify for services through the state, no matter what state you're in. It could be like, say, here in California, you may qualify up to $10,000 in counseling and therapy, maybe up to $13,000 for relocation, maybe loss of wages. Those things, those victim advocates at the local victim assistance program, they can help you. I also highly suggest that all of you take a self-defense and safety class. If you have not already done so, whether you're a male or a female, no matter what your age is, I highly suggest it as professionals to take a self-defense and safety class or a safety 101 awareness class. Also highly suggest that to all children and all your grandchildren, no matter what age they are, is to please take that class. It can be very informative. It can also be life-changing in your area as well. Also know the laws. Know the laws in your state, in your city, in your county. They change continuously. When you go to vote, pay attention. Don't just read the first sentence or the first paragraph. Make sure you read through it. And as I always say, if it says in there to vote for this new law that it's going to give more money to the schools or better streets, that should be a red flag to make sure that you read through it, because that may be releasing offenders out early, including murderers and molesters that are being released just because people maybe read it wrong and they thought it was going to be a better law. Unfortunately, we are in a climate where victims and survivors are not supported as much as they should be. And so I highly suggest that you also look into see what other agencies are in your local area, whether it's a domestic violence shelter, whether it's a rape crisis center, whether it's a family of murder organization, and get involved. Maybe host a toy drive or a stuffed animal drive or a blanket drive. Allow your business and your entity to get involved in the community, because together we are better. We are better and stronger together. So please don't forget, include your children, include your grandchildren, include your staff, maybe do a town hall awareness campaign with your local sheriff or police or FBI, victim assistance program. Open it up to the community so that the community gets to know one another and that you work together, because let's be honest, crime happens everywhere and it's happening every single day. We don't want to live in fear. We don't want to run scared. But when we bring awareness, prevention, and advocacy and healing throughout our communities, it makes us so much better that we're together, that we're sticking together, right? So please make sure that you also watch your surroundings when you're shopping, when you're, loading things into your vehicle, who's around, what's happening. Should you leave your belongings in your car? No, right? Whether it's overnight, no matter what neighborhood you are, don't leave your laptop in the car. Somebody's liable to break your window, get in there, and then have your personal information. When you take your car to get serviced, also pay attention to what's in your glove box or in your car. Does it have your home address? You don't want to leave those kind of things in your vehicles or in your office that somebody else might have access to. So please keep your surroundings, pay attention, listen, hear, your eyes, being able to watch out, and don't be afraid to bring up something. If it's dark outside, make sure that you ask, if you're at the mall or if you're at your office and it's dark and there's security there, ask them to walk you to your car. It's okay to ask for help and support, and it's also okay to accept that help and support. So I think that's my 10 minutes I wanted to share with all of you. But again, our information, our organization is Crime Survivors. It's crimesurvivors.org. Highly suggest that you go onto our website. We do a lot of trainings on vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, on Marcy's Law, and just being able to update and support victims and survivors as well as providers. So we cannot thank you enough for this opportunity to be here today.
Well, we can't thank you enough, Patricia, for everything that you're doing. And thank you for sharing your personal experience and for everything that your organization is doing and being a survivor advocate. We're very grateful for your time today. And we're gonna now go through just a few questions that were brought to our attention, and we're happy that you can stick around and participate in that. We are sensitive of everyone's time, but this is important, so we're just gonna get through a few of these questions here. All of our previous presenters are still with us, so if you feel it's your opportunity to answer in the best way possible, then you can certainly take the microphone. But Jay, this may be a question for you. The first question is, what sort of resources or outlets should we be looking to stay on top of for local crime concerns in our area?
Sure. So real quick answer, your local police department always has a police blotter or an online publication every single day, every single week of local crime that's happening and trends. So they generally have two places on the website for most local departments. One will talk about actual reported crimes that are charged in the last week by certain areas. And the second one is they will have alerts or awareness messages of crime trends that they're seeing in the area, both of which are available online through their website. You can contact your local police for more information.
Great, thank you. And while I still have you, this question might be best for you as well. How do I stay safe when I'm in a remote or rural area with little or no cell phone reception?
Yeah, so always planning is the key there. Make sure there's somebody who knows sort of when you should enter that area and when you should leave that area, who's not with you, and then have a set callback time or a set time when you should be making contact with them so that when you're back to where there is reliable service, you have ways to accomplish that.
Great, thank you. Janet, this might be a good one for you. Can I refuse to show a home if I'm feeling unsafe?
Yes, you certainly can. And you don't have to make any apologies for it whatsoever. You can just say something came up. You can say it's an emergency. You can tell them that you're not comfortable right now. So yes, you can certainly do that.
I can't do that
I've
in that
done
app.
it. Pardon me?
I think we just had some background noise from someone else.
okay.
So just a reminder to
Yes.
to mute everyone, but go ahead, Janet, apologies.
But it's a business practice, and this is about your life, your business, et cetera. So you need to be able to be assertive, not showing any subservience, et cetera. So when it's all about you and taking care of yourself, you're certainly entitled to just say, you know what, I'm going to have to cut this appointment short. Something came up. We can reschedule it if you certainly care to, or I can refer you to somebody else. No apologies, period. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you. Patricia, this question is probably for you. What resources are available to me if I do survive a crime?
Yes, and depending on what area you're in, of course, where you reside at, I don't know all of what's available in your area, but that's why I highly suggest and recommend, if you've been a victim of a crime, absolutely making sure that you do report it to the police and to the authorities. Hopefully in your area, they would also refer you to a victim advocate with the victim assistance program in your area through the district attorney's office so that you can qualify for services, or whether it's the National Domestic Violence Hotline, the National Rape Crisis line, whether it's the 988 or the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There is so much available for victims and survivors out there. And of course, depending on your area, if you want to reach out to us, we have a lot of resources in all areas that we're happy to provide. But again, working with your local law enforcement agencies, if you've been a victim of a crime, to inquire, what are your rights as a victim of a crime? What services are available? It could be something as simple as an organization providing a resource guide with all of the local shelters, or a victim emergency bag that has things like a toothpaste and toothbrush, because many victims have to go to an emergency shelter, right? So there are a lot of resources out there depending on your area. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to provide a full comprehensive list for that. But please work with your local sheriff's department and police department, because they'll be able to provide all of the resources in your surrounding areas.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Patricia. Next question is, in the immediate aftermath of a crime, what first steps should I be taking?
Yeah, so first steps are very easy. Number one, get yourself physically secure into a location where you're safe. Call 911. And then you want to start thinking about, once you are safe, what exactly happened? What do you need to be able to communicate about whatever the crime was? We normally think about this in a personal attack situation where you have just been personally attacked or victimized. And one technique that we are trained and that we recommend people use when describing an attacker or a set of attackers or the crime is start at the top, start with the hair, and just work your way right down that face and through the body, into clothing, into anything distinctive. Sometimes we catch people based on a distinctive pair of shoes we see in a video. But the key is get somewhere physically safe, call 911, and then hang out and wait for the cavalry to arrive. But while you're there, kind of just take deep breaths, get yourself in control to the best you can, and administer self-care. If you're injured, you're your own best advocate in making sure that you survive until somebody can get help to you.
Very good.
And you also want to make sure that you don't destroy any evidence. I mean, when I was a police officer, we would have rape victims, assault victims. They would actually go home and shower. They would change their clothes, etc. So they would wash their clothes. So you don't want to destroy any evidence. If you have to write something down to remind yourself about what's going on, write it down. But of course, call the police as soon as you can, because you want to get everything documented, photographed, etc., as soon as you can.
Thank you, Janet. And how do I protect myself when I'm promoting my business on the internet? That might be back to you again, Jay.
Yeah, so I mean, the internet, it's a great tool for getting your name out there and marketing. Obviously, there's tons of research that shows when you have engaging photos and we have things that people can remember that are catchy, you tend to get more traffic, you tend to get more business referrals. Every opportunity comes with a vulnerability. So make sure that you're not putting things out there on the internet related to your schedule, related to your location that are easily tracked or traced, where somebody can plan to meet you at a convenient time and place of their choosing. Always set your own, sort of structure around that. Physical safety should be your number one priority, and then business opportunity. So just look at that from a critical eye and make sure that you're not putting anything there. You're always trying to balance availability and being able to be found as a business person with a profit motive versus the personal threat that comes with that. So just think about, make sure that you've got good physical security guidelines, cameras that reliably record so that you can see, maybe if you're working alone in an office, whom you're going to meet on the other side of a door if you can't see out of it. What is your physical security plan? Should always be part of your business plan and your online presence.
Great, thank you. Courtney, this is a question for NAR. What is NAR's position on guns, if they have one?
Thank you so much. That is an excellent question, Madeline. And hello, everyone. I am the co-staff executive of the REALTOR Safety Advisory Committee alongside Brianne Gingrich. And just to close it out here, so with NAR, the answer to that question is it is up to the individual. NAR does not give a specific stance on gun ownership. Just like any resources that are available to you, we did put some in the chat as well. Please have a look at that list of resources. It is up to the individual to determine, according to their laws, what is best for them. And of course, please have a look at those resources, think through what is a best option for you. And of course, always, always, always listen to your gut, listen to what you are feeling internally in terms of what is happening to you. If you feel like you need to get away, if you feel like you need to cancel that appointment, if you feel anything along those lines, make sure that you are definitely doing that.
Thank you, Courtney. Well, in closing, I would like to thank all of our presenters for your time today. And safety means something different to everyone. We covered coast to coast safety topics. We did not cover them all, but we hope we gave you enough information and education to help keep yourself safe in your business and to open the door to having these types of very important conversations. Please review the NAR safety resources. There is going to be a slide and there is a link in the chat. Please take a screenshot of it for your records. As a reminder, this presentation recording will be available next week at nar.realtor/safety and also via email by September 30th. Thank you again to our sponsor, NAR Center for Realtor Financial Wellness. In closing, again to Mr. Jay Greenberg, Patricia Wisconis, Janet Judd, and all the staff at the National Association of Realtors. Thank you for making today possible. Keep yourself safe out there. Happy Safety Month. And thank you all for joining us today. Take good care.